Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Laurie Kirby in the Wolff Den. Welcome. Happy New Year. How's everything going?
Everything is wonderful, except for already I made a mistake in how I typed my name. This is me moving too fast.
It's the all caps. It's fine. I think we get the picture. For the people listening or in the audience who don't know who you are, just give a quick introduction and then we'll get into everything.
Well, hello to my friends who are tuning in, and those who aren't. I know who you are, and those who are there. Thank you, Catherine. So my background is essentially as a lawyer. I spent most of my career as an attorney, but I always had a love for the arts, and so I pivoted in my 40s and began producing a number of different festivals. I saw that they had a need to really be better educated, to be more business focused, to be more safety conscious. And so for the past 15 years, I've worked in the conference business and now owning my own conference, producing my own conference that brings together festivals of all different types for networking, for education, best practices, and fun mostly. And that's been in Santa Barbara, New York, San Francisco, and we're planning and gearing up for 2023 as well.
Yeah, and that's FestForums, the name, the information scrolling at the bottom. Encourage everyone to check out the website and the socials for more information. Is it strictly festivals? Obviously, festivals is kind of generic. There's all different types of festivals, right? When you say a festival, most people think of music festivals, but man, I've been in the event world, but as I got into the Ticket Time Machine, realized how many different festivals there are. There's a dog festival. So what's the majority of the people who join this conference? What type of festivals are they?
Sure, you're right. I mean, it can expand to other types of events naturally because the pain points are typically similar, but it's really about celebrating the festival experience, the culture of the festival. Mostly music festivals, but many film festivals, food and wine festivals, and wellness festivals are there as well. And we welcome all types of events and sporting events. Really, anybody who wants to address the issues of safety and whatever the issues are of the day, as they tend to change from year to year, as we've seen, obviously.
Yeah, the issues are they do change, and some get a lot more noise than others. Safety obviously has come to the forefront over the last couple of years with COVID, and then you had the Astro World incident, obviously as a festival. What type of information is out there that people can avoid the problems? Because it's you really only hear about the bad stuff that happens and not as much as the good. And that's the case with everything, right? When something bad happens, we hear all about it, and all the good things that happen, nobody hears about it. So where is the best place? Obviously, conferences that like yours, but outside of just gathering together and having sessions, where do people go in the festival world for content and community?
Well, you raise a great point. Because there haven't been a lot of resources in that respect, and so you have to sort of search them out for yourself. There were conferences like Polestar, there are the Event Safety Alliance. There's other organizations that address safety concerns, but this isn't a new issue, Matt. These issues have been presenting themselves for years in the form of climate change. We've seen stage collapses. With poor construction. We've seen all kinds of accidents. We've seen drug overdoses. So festivals have been grappling with the same really hazards that the human condition engenders. And so consequently, we are constantly moving. The only constant is change in the world and in the festival industry. And so consequently, depending on the type of catastrophic event you're dealing with, whether it's medical, there are medical resources, whether it's stage collapse, climate change, COVID, all of them require different expertise. And so there are companies designed to address all of those exigencies and bring a better degree of safety and awareness. And of course, insurance companies are risk managers. And so they also take a role in making sure that best practices are being completed by these various festivals.
Yeah, one of the and safety, obviously safety should come first. That should be the first thing that everyone thinks about when we're in a festival. Whether that's the crowd, equipment, weather, all that stuff. It should come first. With COVID, there's such an added layer to that. And the last few years, one of the things that's been very frustrating as someone in the events world, I'm sure you felt it, and all the people that of FestForums felt it, is that there's no real uniformity. Everything's different across the board, and some of this stuff really is just the guy under the guise of safety, using COVID as scapegoats or certain things to try and I guess implement things that don't really make me as a person feel any safer. For example, showing a vaccine when they're not. First of all, they're not checking a vaccine card, right? And then I show up and I show them this, and there's nothing to indicate that that's actually me. And so you just push right through it. So talk about the last couple of years in the events world, and especially in California, events that weren't able to go on and they're able to go on elsewhere. The risks are really the same. I was at a conference the other day, wore a mask, trade show on the floor, and everyone did. Didn't feel unsafe, but it's really the luck of the draw. So I want to hear a little bit about the last couple of years and what you're hearing about from the community and events that weren't able to go wrong and events that were, and sort of the unevenness of how events are treated.
Yeah, well, COVID was, of course, the first public health crisis that this nation has and the world has encountered over the past 100 years. So this threw a monkey wrench into every aspect of life. Obviously, we've all been impacted for the past 2 years. I myself put the conference on hold for the very same reason, and I'm not restarting it. And so to try and re-enter into this brave new world uh, needs a lot of public health information, a lot of safety information. There are companies out there. I actually consult with one, World Back to Work, which has been at the forefront of establishing protocols and testing and all sorts of awareness. But you're right, it's very patchwork. And I recently spoke to someone on the board of NEVA who indicated many of the red states are not concerned about it. And I think, again, what's going to change the attitude about that? Lawsuits, deaths, perhaps. But there are protocols in place that can make events much safer. I went to an Aspen Live event, and every one of us had a rapid test before we could even enter. So there are ways to do this. There's ways to do it efficiently, quickly, safely. Like everything else, I was listening to Justice Breyer before we came on, who will be retiring. This is an experiment. We're all buying into all of this. So you have to have the mindset you care about the safety of yourself and others first. So if people are using fraudulent cards and doing things to abrogate that, it makes it very difficult for organizers to have a safe environment. But there are ways to go about it, and there are companies that consult on it. We're seeing reduced capacities. I went to the Belly Up in Aspen, and we did have to show our cards. So there's a lot of different things we can do. There are rapid tests we can do. There are different ways to maintain safer environments, and everybody is kind of grappling with it and trying to figure it out. But there is no uniform standard amongst venues, amongst companies, amongst states, amongst countries. So it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, and there's an advantage to bigger versus smaller organizations and festivals. Some can afford to take some chances that others can't financially, PR wise as well. So it's been you mentioned NEVA. They've done a great job of getting money into the hands of people who frankly needed, who haven't been able to open their doors or have, if you have to reduce capacity. A lot of these events and festivals, they can't survive at reduced capacity, right? It's not even the ticket sales that they're making the money on. It's all the merchandise and the food and the beverage. And now you have other people losing jobs. So, they've done a good job. It seems like the government hasn't done. I mean, they did a little bit. There was a lot of what's the word? What's the word when they go to DC and go get on the floor?
Lobbying.
Lobbying. My brain. There's been a lot of lobbying for that, and it feels like all these other industries have been put ahead of the entertainment world, which I think is unfortunate, because if you start thinking about what life would be without entertainment, it's crazy, right? To think about if we didn't have music and movies and art and all of that, people would struggle to find things to do. I know I would.
Well, I know NEVA really single-handedly rescued, through the efforts of thousands of volunteers. And Amy Klobuchar, for example, was very, very critical to the success of that legislation. They basically salvaged the industry for many of the promoters and venues. And I will say, in terms of insurance, I mean, it's been very difficult to get things passed in Congress, as we've seen recently. So uniformity in COVID protocols is extremely difficult. But we are seeing certain states like Illinois and California where mandates are making it possible for organizations to have reimbursement through insurance. So it is at no cost to the venues and the organizers to have good COVID testing protocols. And I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to see other states adopt it so that everyone gets back to work, because what we're seeing is a tremendous bottleneck in what's happening in the festival industry, trying to get back on its feet, because there's a limited number of resources. There's not as much staffing available. The dates, the stages, the artists, all of that is creating a huge logjam. And many of these festivals have been postponed for years. They've been paid for the artists by the ticket holders who've remained patient. But it's going to be a bit of a shall I say, mess when things start to reopen.
It feels like we're not out of the woods. COVID could be around for a while. It feels like 2022. I don't want to say come back to normal, but you're seeing festival wise, announcements, and it feels like everyone is going to be almost everyone's going to be participating in festivals this year, which is great to see. Some had to move the time, so there'll be some conflicts. But there's still uncertainty. Events are being canceled. You have Adele canceling her tour, and CID had the Dead and Company event canceled last minute in Mexico.
Sean Mayer.
Yeah, it's hard to, as a fan. I know there's insurance and all of that, but it still doesn't cover your time and all the money you put into there. With a couple of years in here, should these events have a better idea of how to handle everything? Obviously, there's things that are out of their control, but to sort of have a better plan as to contingencies, backups, and cancellations. What are you seeing?
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone thought we would be open, and then Omicron came, and there's a new variation that is fomenting in parts of Europe that we'll see what happens with that. But I did a survey on LinkedIn last week, and I can read the results. I asked people if they were coming back. It was the yes, and we can't wait. That was 62% said they were. The next option was yes after rescheduling dates. 14% said that they were doing that. 2% had canceled completely, and then 22% had said who knows what to do. So we're really all over the map, and the giants like AEG and Live Nation can hang in there perhaps a little better, although they have certainly a lot of carrying costs in their public companies and they're responsible to their shareholders. But some of these smaller festivals, but for NEVA, would be dead in the water. So But this is not just at festivals. This is across the board, all industries. We're seeing it with restaurants. We're also rescued to some extent, and our supply chains are very limited right now. We're seeing those issues manifest itself, and so there's no simple answer to a very complicated societal issue. Um, and so everyone is sort of left to fend for themselves. I mean, this is a crisis in real time. And that's why people get angry with perhaps Anthony Fauci, but we're living in real time. This isn't a crisis we can look back on and say, we do have vaccines now and boosters and safer protocols. So we have made success, but because we have not reached a tipping point with herd immunity, this is going to continue to be an issue. And COVID is going to play a role in our lives for years to come. Nonetheless, because people are resilient and they carry on, just as they do in all things, we will continue to see a growth of festivals. I mean, we're not just seeing it in music, we're seeing it in the film world too, which is, a whole other industry that I've always been very involved with. And so, what's happened now is we're seeing a lot more in the hybrid industry. And I think people are really paying attention to that because that's become very popular. People have huge screen televisions and great Bose sound sets. And so they deliver the experience to their home. And in return, some of these streaming companies have found a way to bring groups together communally to enjoy the experience as best they can, because we as a culture have decided we want music and film in our lives.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on the online and hybrid and virtual content. Ace has a great point about the staffing shortages and the people that are working these events. And I said this right at the beginning when there was a lot of layoffs and furloughs, is that these people, they're going to look for other work, and they're going to come back, but they might have one foot out the door. So the cost of letting people go or furloughing them is going to be felt for a while afterwards. Because even if you bring someone who's just as good, there's a ramp up time to get them, and then half the people you bring in aren't going to have the experience and that the other people have. So that's been a huge role all over the place, but definitely in the event world.
Well, it's a very complicated issue, because there was this attitude, I think, out there that people were staying home because they were just getting unemployment. I think cast an unfair light on the real complexities of what was happening. And what people began to do is re-examine in their own lives, the toll that some of these jobs were taking, commensurate with the pay, which brings up a whole other issue of inequality in this country. And so people retired, they took other jobs. So there is a real shortage of labor. We also, immigration policies, some of these more unskilled jobs have been filled by immigrants. That's a pathway to American citizenship. And through reduction in that, we don't have the unskilled labor force that we used to have. Young people are entering tech. They have huge debt. The pathways to careers have been stymied over the last few years. So there isn't one sole reason, but sure, there is a shortage in labor. The use of volunteers has been curtailed, and perhaps rightly so. But all of these things have led to a shortage in labor. And yes, it will create problems if they're not skilled, but everybody started somewhere. So everybody was unskilled at one point. And so proper training is going to be even that much more important as we bring in this new pool of labor.
Yeah, it's it's not a problem that wasn't before. Also, it just all these problems keep get escalated, and with everything that's going on, and that's the same technology. Like there was technology that was already in the works or even already existed, but everything zoomed by 10 years forward because people had to have it, and they jumped on it quickly, like live streaming and Zoom calls and all of that. You guys very, very quickly out of the gate had some excellent content with webinars and just bringing people together to talk. Intix did a great job. I was on a weekly call. Maureen Anderson does a great job of that, building community. From what I understand, the people who attend your events, it's a community of people who come together, share ideas, and there's something about being around these people that's different than just going to an event for the sake of going to an event. So talk a little bit about the community that you've built over the years, the conference that's really more than just a conference. It's more than just people coming and going to a session and walking through a trade show hall.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Well, I love people. I love bringing people together. I love the role of that education and networking and fun should play in all of our careers. And so I felt it was such an underserved need. And again, I think it came because, as an attorney, I did run these festivals. When I say like a business, they are a business. And until FestForums and the conference that I produced before that, there had never been a place where people in the music festival industry had come together. Now, the film festival industry has a new industry, a trade organization. But before then, we didn't have anything. And so this was an opportunity to really celebrate that culture. And so I thought, let's make it not only educational, but let's make it fun. I mean, Santa Barbara is about the most beautiful place I've ever been to.
Yeah.
So that's why I moved here. And so we were able to bring live entertainment, film premieres, and also we had no us and them. And one of the things I would say to folks is when you get here, put your ego down. If I don't care if you're talking to Quentin Tarantino, Jack Johnson, Dennis Quaid, the Coen brothers, or Joe Schmo like me, everybody's the same here. Everybody's equal. Everybody's in this business. And so we created that culture. Two dear friends of mine who recently passed, one who was the co-creator of Woodstock, another one the producer of Glastonbury, were always available. Excuse me. And so we made sure that there were talks all the time, that folks were available to meet, to network. Kevin Lyman played a huge role in that. I mean, my hat's off to him. We had amazing people. Maureen Ford, president of Live Nation. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of people, but I've had an amazing advisory board that bought into the idea that we lift all boats through our networking efforts. And we really made it a fun opportunity because people who worked on these festivals had never even had a chance to meet each other before FestForums. And so it became their mini vacation. And we built memories, and we'd have bring the best wine in and just have great live entertainment. I mean, Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald playing together. So we built experiences that people really cherished and loved. And so it is a special place. I keep hearing that. I was ready to literally hang up my hat with the whole thing when COVID happened. And I really was kind of propped back up, particularly Robert Richards, who I miss so dearly from Glastonbury, really got behind me and said, you got to keep this going. The community needs this. And so I've really been inspired by that. So I thank you for honoring and recognizing what we've accomplished.
Yeah, and Chris talks about the people, friends. That's really it, is friends too. I've been to a number of conferences, been to in some organizations, and just people who have become friends, which is great. Friends can do business with each other. That's great. I think there's three types of relationships you could have. I can help you, you can help me, or we can help each other. And I'm all for any of them. There's people that I connect with that I offer nothing to. There's nothing I could do for them really other than just being a friend, and people that vice versa. And when you can find people you can collaborate together and sort of just help, talk about the people that you think are doing good stuff. Talk about the companies that are doing great things. Like you said, we're all on the same team. We're trying to make the industry better. And it's great to be around that. What's the last? It's kind of a loaded question here, but what's the last 2 years been like without having an in-person event, and how have you got your fix?
Well, it's funny you should ask. One, my granddaughter was born during
Okay, very nice.
COVID. Um, so my fix is seeing her every 3 months. She's on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So I fly out. I'll be flying out in a couple days to watch her. Little blue-eyed redhead. We can't figure the orphan child where she came from. But she's a hoot, Marin Rose. And I also decided I had a lot of things that I always liked to do. I've always worked. I graduated from law school at 23, and I've never, I, I don't even know what it's like to not work. So even during COVID, when I could have made as much money on unemployment, I decided I really wanted to learn the wine industry because I'm a lover of really good wine. And I thought, well, why don't I learn the business? And so I started and created at one of my favorite wineries, Brander Winery, with the owner, Fred Brander, created a concert series in the summer. And this is during COVID when it wasn't allowed. So we were like bootleggers. It was like prohibition, but we did it. We kept it safe. Nobody got COVID. A couple of people fell with their masks on, but other than that, everyone bought into it. And so that was it was amazing how rewarding that experience was. And then I worked at some wineries. I also kind of wanted to learn the jewelry business. I think gems and jewelry are very interesting, even though I'm not a big collector of it. I learned the jewelry business. I'm a huge film nut. I've served on a lot of juries for films. And so I spent a lot of time watching films. And I'm also a huge reader, and I'm a political junkie. So I had made as my New Year's resolution, which I normally don't do, before 2020, that I was going to read a book every month, and I doubled that. And so I just went through my Kindle the other day, and I was like, wow, I've read a lot of books. So yes, and one of the ones I'm reading right now, I'm finishing right now, is Peril. For those of you who have not read it, it's quite fascinating. So I really kind of became a hobbyist, and I'm a huge golfer. So I played a lot of golf and walked a lot, just really tried to enjoy life, spent a lot of time talking to my children. I'm very close to them, and spent time with my boyfriend. So it hasn't been that horrible.
Yeah, I say that obviously there was a lot of devastation that COVID had brought, but it gave us a chance to sort of slow down, enjoy the things, spend more time, with the people in your home, or even just have more conversations that you don't normally have when you're so busy. And so there's a lot of good things that had come from it. Certainly, I missed live events, and I've been going here and there. Even in 2020 last year, I went to a bunch, some festivals, some games. Didn't feel unsafe. I wouldn't have gone if I did. I haven't been back to the movie theater. I miss movies. I used to go on Friday and see a new one, and don't tell anyone, but I'd stay for a second one sometimes. And
I understand that.
yeah, it's but there's some good movies on Netflix and that have come out. But I love going to the theater, even just by myself, going on a Friday to watch the thing. Eventually, I'll get back to that, regardless of if it's available at your home. The events. Have you been to anything? Have you been to a festival, a conference, anything? I know you're set to go to Polestar.
Yeah, I have. I went to Aspen Live, but as I said, we were tested before we entered, and that weighed heavily into my decision to attend because I knew that we would be tested. And this was right. The issue has been, as we all know, is you make the plans to go and then another variant hits. And
Yeah.
so you think, oh, it'll be safe by then. And then something else happens. And so I was, trepidatious about going, but I knew that we would be tested. And I knew that Jim Louie, who organizes that, would make sure that we were safe, and then he would take the safety very seriously, which is how I got involved consulting with the company that actually did the testing there. And another area that I think has been really important too is cashless, and I do some consulting on cashless because I think that's going to be one of the protocols to make these events safer. I don't think that's going away. That's going to move forward. for a variety of reasons. It improves the whole user experience in so many different ways, and there's so many data points that can be collected from it. So
I
I'm a
want,
big
I want to challenge you on that a little bit.
sure.
I think as I'm a cash guy. I like cash for a lot of things. I
Sure.
think going fully cashless is, I think there should be some option. I understand money's been the dirtiest thing anyway, right? I mean, it's disgusting money when you think about it from the cleanliness point of view. But even the same with tickets, like handing something, they're still handing you, food and drink and merch. So there's still a combination.
Sure.
Is it discriminating against the people who don't have cards or don't want to put stuff on cards? I mean, people use cash a lot of ways in a way to budget and not overspend for things. And at a festival, that could get carried away very easily. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think like everything else, I think it's a hybrid experience, and I think there are at least everybody I know who's using cashless also accepts cash. It's just an add-on if you want to be able to not think about where your phone is, where your cash is. It's certainly something you can just attach through a wrist bracelet,
Yeah.
tap, and hopefully move the line faster and make the experience more streamlined for you. If you prefer to use cash, there are occasionally places where they don't accept cash, but I mean, cash will always be king, right?
Yeah, that's my opinion. My wife and I are very different. She's got an Apple Watch and had a Fitbit and pays for stuff like this. And I use cash sometimes. I use the card a little bit more to try and get rewards. I'm doing a better job with that. And it's nice to tap to tap a card, but it's interesting that way. I do think that there is definitely advantages, and our friend Mel at Tap It is doing some great stuff with the cashless.
Oh,
She's been on the Wolff Den before. I know she's an advisor for
she is.
FestForums. Great advocate for the industry. But yeah, I just want to, a lot of people use, like they were using COVID and mobile ticketing and cashless under the guise of safety. And there's definitely some aspects that help the safety of it. But a lot of it is it saves them money, it gets them data, and there's advantage to that. I'm not arguing it, and a lot of times it does enhance the fan experience. But there are stuff that's done on your phone and that doesn't, that kind of, it's made stuff worse. But they're still figuring it out, I think. That's my opinion as someone who goes to a lot of these events and likes to use both cash and credit.
Matt, there's always a place in the world for Luddites like us. So not to worry, cash isn't going away anytime soon. And there are privacy issues. And I see one of our writers is just saying totally cashless. I mean, that is the wave of the future. It also costs money to print money. There's always arguments all the way around, right? It's like I used to say, technology is neutral. Technology doesn't have a moral compass. It's all of us have our old individual preferences. It's like when I talk to people and say, do you prefer Kindle to books? And everybody has a different preference, and all of them are okay.
Yeah, and
around.
Yeah, I'm not a Kindle guy. My wife loves Kindle. I like to pick up a book. Maybe I might read more if I did use Kindle. I don't know. It sounds like using that technology has helped you read more than maybe you would have. Bill is not a huge fan of Mel. I'm just kidding.
Bill.
So I have a great story. I was at a Gator game, and it was in I think it was 21, maybe it was 20, the end of 20. Yeah, and the credit cards went down. Whole system went down in the entire stadium. And I had cash, which I always do, carry cash, and so I went and got a drink and something to eat on. And there were people online who didn't have cash on them, and I offered to say, hey, if you want to Venmo me some money, I will. I'll do it. So and they lost a lot of money, right? I mean, think about being down for a quarter, a credit card being down for a quarter with drinks.
Oh yeah.
That happened was it Allegiant? Which was the one that opened? I think it was in Vegas. They opened, the credit cards went down, and they had to give away like all kinds of stuff. They probably lost a ton of money on that. But yeah, but we're still seeing the future and how they can leverage it. There's great things about cashless. I know when I went to Tortuga Music Festival, I used the, put my Discover on my card, and they gave you a little bit of, they gave me a few bucks. So there's great partnership opportunities. There's always,
Right, right.
I'm all for anything that's going to be a win-win-win-win, and there's everybody wins, which is
And there's different types too of cashless. Some of it's already built in here, right? It's native to your app, and then there are others that are Wi-Fi dependent, and so that's a whole other issue. You can get Mel back on the show to explain it.
What's the when we talk about well, let's continue on technology, because again, when the pandemic happened, everyone was quick to do a live stream and get online, and but I don't know that they did it that effectively, and so I could probably count on my hand the number of events that I saw online that I would actually have paid for. There was a lot of free content, which I think was good, just keeping in mind entertaining and keeping relationships. There's value to that. Moving forward, hybrid is going to be a thing. I think there's value to streaming an event depending on how you do it and what it is, or even just putting an event totally online that gives more opportunity for people to see. And not every festival goes all around the world and the country, and not every tour goes there. So people in areas that are hard to find can't always fly now 3 hours to get to it. What have you seen in the hybrid world, or types of content that have been virtual that you think is great, and where do you think they can improve?
Yeah, hybrid is a whole conversation unto itself, and it depends on what kind of experience you're talking about, because there are a lot of rights holders involved when it comes to anything that you're streaming, and so festivals become just a very thorny issue. And I have watched Coachella and many other festivals um, to understand what that experience is like, and it's certainly not the same. I mean, me trudging through Glastonbury is not the same as watching it on the BBC. So to me, there's no substitute for the live experience. Nonetheless, I may not be able to get to that film festival, or I may not get tickets to Coachella. And it's really a great marketing tool as well for these festivals, for their reach. So I think we're right at the infancy of what can be done with it. I know that Rick Farnham and Andrew Dreskin just started a company, Fly Machine, and raised an incredible amount of capital. So there is a future in these streamed events. I think there are a couple different components of it. Obviously, the quality of the streaming. I know Bulldog Media has been in it for a long time, and they've sort of perfected what it should look like in terms of the quality. But yeah, it's dependent on Wi-Fi and the connectivity, and there are all sorts of technical pieces to it. And then it's the content themselves. The rights holders. How are you able to release it? Are musicians happy with the way they sound on a live stream? So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. In the film festival world, it's been very successful. People watch in these sort of group chats, and then you get a sort of personalized Q&A with the director, which is what really film festivals serve a role in doing, is bringing the cast and crew together so that you can deeper explore the meanings of the films. So I think there's a lot more work to be done on it. There's a lot of companies, obviously, that cropped up during COVID, who are going to be the winners in the race to perfect it. Time will tell, and then they always get bought out by the giants once the technology is good enough for that. So I don't have a pat answer on it, but I do see that hybrid is the direction of the future. And what happened was, it's like the creation of the vaccine, where the exigencies of time required that drug manufacturers step up and accelerate their scientific information to bring us a vaccine instead of 4 to 12 years, did it within a year. It's the same thing with streaming. Because we needed to have it, the attention was focused on it. And so the quality has improved. People have accepted it more as a way of life, and that some things will be live and some things will be screened. And sometimes it helps with talent. If you can't get the talent there, sometimes that's the second best way to do it. You even see it with the award ceremonies, right? So it's here to stay. And I guess the answer is I don't have the solid answer, but it's
Yeah,
here to
no,
stay.
we're still figuring a lot of things out. Even things that have been around forever are still being figured out. One of the reasons I think it's important is there's people who can't get to events, and there's people who now don't want to go to events anymore. Whether it's a festival or a game, they'd rather sit in the comfort of their home with the screens that we have and the quality of the audio and their own food and drink, and don't have to worry about parking. And so it's that people are trying to figure a way to include them. Um, for their experience, but also that's money, right? There's a lot of money involved with the people who like what you're doing, but don't actually have access to it. So we'll see what happens with that. Glad that physical's going. I'd always rather be in person than anything else, but certainly it's better than not having an opportunity to hear or see the people and the music. It'll be interesting where it heads.
Live music. And I think one thing I've learned too is always look at sports, because they always perfect it first. There's so much more money. And one of the interesting things about football is the game itself is made for television, whereas baseball is not. Baseball is sort of boring on television, right? But when you're there at the live event, it's really interesting. It's really fun. And football, having gone to the Patriots for years and having watched them on TV, I wouldn't say there's a huge difference. So
one of the things. So I was at the Field of Dreams game in Iowa, and it was a made-for-TV event. And I think the people who went there spent a lot of money and time and effort to travel, missed out. I mean, obviously, it was what it was, so it was great anyway. But I think from a in-person event experience, I thought they dropped the ball on it, and it was really just geared towards television, something that festivals and live events don't have to worry about because most of this stuff isn't televised. It's all about the people that are there. But there's a lot of the same old at these festivals, giving away the same stuff that people are walking to entice them to come up to their booths while they're at a festival. I think, there's a lot of people and companies who have, a lot of good vision and some unique ideas and products. So hopefully that'll change. It's really become more of there's plenty of people who can walk around the festival and have a lot to do without having to be up front in the stage, still being able to listen to the music, and it really creates an experience for them. So it's good to see some of the festivals moving that way.
And I think they do try to create special experiences through the live stream. Red Bull was really good at doing that. The Olympics are really good at doing that, giving you the backstory of the artists and, creating these sort of special experiences that you otherwise would not have if you were at the event. So there is that sort of added benefit. And again, it's very easy with a film festival because you can interview the director, and people can do interactive in that experience. So there are some nice benefits to it, and particularly as we age, well, everyone's aging, but baby boomers are aging, and maybe aren't as agile as they used to be. Strictly speaking for myself, so again, I think it's going to have a place in the ecosystem of festivals.
Yeah, when we were young in the news lately, they announced their concert and the internet breaks with all the people. How the heck are they going to get what are they going to play? 3 minutes at a time. Then they add a second date, which I think everyone knew they were going to add, and now they add a third date.
Wow.
I love festivals, but I love a one-day event where I can see everyone who's on the lineup. I always told, because I hate having to make choices, and sometimes they're like really difficult choices.
Don't go to Glastonbury.
You're trying to figure out hey, I'm going to wait till here, but then I leave early to go to the next one, and I miss the one song that I wanted to really hear. What type of festival environments are your favorites to go to? Do you have anything in mind? Is it a certain type of music? Is it a certain type of environment? Big, small?
I always like the smaller, more intimate environment. I'm going to see Patrick Droney. I'm a huge fan of his now. I think he's got that sort of breakout sound. He reminds me of John Mayer, who's my other favorite. The problem with John Mayer is he only plays arenas, and I don't like arena tours. They're impersonal. I mean, I've seen Madonna. I've seen a lot of artists in my day. I grew up in, you know, in New Jersey, and went to, we would go to the Newport Festival. And of course I lived in Newport, the Newport Folk Festival, my entire childhood. So I've spent my childhood, my teenage years, and beyond going to concerts and going to festivals, and was raised on it. And, I've met some amazing people. It's interesting. Taj Mahal, I finally met 50 years after I saw him play at Newport, because we honored him. And George Wein, we honored at FestForums. So, I've been able to meet all these greats, and I love the festival culture. Although having gone to Glastonbury a few times, it's getting tougher and tougher. That bathroom situation is, not my favorite. So I really like the smaller, intimate events. I've always loved the Palm Spring Film Festival. There's just the whole culture of great film, great music, great art. I love art. I love art museums. I love travel. So I like to experience life and all that it has to offer. I love food and wine festivals. Hawaii Food and Wine Festival, Denise and Roy Yamaguchi put on, one of my favorite experiences ever. So, that's why I'm in this business and I think we all love it. I mean, those are all experiences that we'll never forget. And I have to agree with our last uh, comment is the smaller venues are definitely more intimate and enjoyable.
I agree with you. I'm an outdoor, amphitheater kind of guy. But not a lot of people are going to get me to go to a concert indoors. Just even the one-offs, not even just the festivals. It's have to be an act, and I've seen so many acts, but it's just for me, it's not as good an experience. So I don't prefer that as much. It's interesting big versus small. We work with Four Chord Music Festival in Pittsburgh. Rishi Bal, who's actually a performer in a band called Eternal Boy, runs the whole thing basically by himself, and it's just a great environment. And he's out there, and small type of festival. So I agree. The smaller type of festivals. The problem is people don't want to necessarily cap, right, how many people they'll let in. So if you have the ability to sell the tickets, and we saw this a lot with uh, some events, is that they'll sell as many tickets as they can, and that hurts the experience of the people who are going to it.
Well, it sure did at Astro World.
Yeah. Well, that there was problem. People were rushing the gate security before it even started. I mean, I think it was a disaster waiting to happen. You mentioned New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. John D'Esposito bringing back Bamboozle Festival, which was really an awesome event. And I think he's starting this year with PopCon X, smaller scale. Bamboozle will be back next year. So a lot of New Jersey becoming a pretty big Atlantic City, getting some good festivals out there, some country, and it's always been a kind of a music, I think, underdog with Bruce and
John Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi and the Stone Pony, but some pretty good venues out there. That's where I grew up loving music.
I even got to dance with Bruce Springsteen at the Stone Pony, true story, at the age of 18.
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic. Everyone who knows, and these guys, they show up, right? I mean, they just show up unannounced and kind of get on stage, and it's crazy. Just not everyone, but the people like Bruce who are really connected with their fans. How about him selling his music for $500 million? That's pretty good.
Did he sell his catalog?
Yeah, he sold it. He was one of the first one. Now some other people are selling it willingly. And I get it. Why not? I mean, look, your music is your music. If you have a chance to change I mean, he doesn't need money, but obviously everyone in his world, that's life-changing money. Do some great things with it, which I know he does some great stuff with charity too. Do you have a bucket?
We'll now hear him on every car commercial.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list of a festival that you haven't been to, that you've obviously been to so many of them? Do you have one that you haven't been to, or an event, or somewhere, could be anywhere around the world?
Oh gosh, that is such a wonderful uh, question. Again, I am more of a fan of the smaller festivals, and I'm so spoiled because I get to go VIP. I know I'm such a brat. I would love the experience. Actually, I am also a doc film producer, and I would actually love to do on some of the films that I've worked on. Maybe take a deeper role and do the film festival circuit. I think if I hadn't done what I did, I was a history major, and I wanted to go the road of Doris Kearns Goodwin, and I thought, well, that's going to be a tough living. So I went to law school instead, and yet my heart's always been with documentary films, and I've worked on and helped produce music docs. To me, that would be my dream. Actually, would be to do a film festival circuit. Um,
So
with
many great films.
I was looking for a producer.
So many great films, documentaries, even in the music world, but the biopics and just great. Music is such a big part of films in general. I always used to go and get the soundtracks for these for the movies, and then I was like, well, none of these are in the movie. It's some of it was funny. It's just like it's soundtracks for movies were great. I love them. Music again, without music it'd be tough sledding. Do you have any movie? Talking about being a movie buff. Any movies that stand out in like your all time favorites?
Oh gosh, well, I was a little kid and I saw Citizen Kane, not knowing anything about the film, and of course, it is now probably the greatest film of all time. I love anything by Wes Anderson. I love Far From Heaven. I have so many directors. I just watched The Hero, Maldivar's new film. And having screened thousands of movies for the various festivals I've been in, there's a lot of really bad movies out there. Sorry to all
Yeah,
you
no, there is a lot of good ones, but a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's just a plethora of great films out there, but then there's the ones I loved the Coen brothers. I love their stuff. They're so creative. Of course, some of Quentin Tarantino's films are absolutely genius. I love the old comedies with Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. So, there isn't really any particular genre that always speaks to me, but in terms of working on films, music docs are my first love.
I love Wes Anderson. Do you have a favorite Wes Anderson movie?
Yes, Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
I
good one.
watched it a dozen times. Um, and,
What was the one with the day camp?
oh gosh, I knew I should have prepped more for this interview.
No, I always forget the names of his movies, but they're so weird and great. It's really really interesting. It's like people don't understand it, and I think they think it's too maybe artsy. I think Quentin Tarantino started out that way, and he became a little bit more. Some of his stuff was still more mainstream, but still, I like that type of entertainment where you can just get lost in it and really have to try and figure out. There's so many different things going on, and try and figure it out.
Well, he's an absolute genius. I mean, he started out working in a video store, quite frankly, and that's why you see that 60s influence on him. But he spoke at our conference, and he's a genius. His grasp of information, his memory, his knowledge, his film catalog history is phenomenal, and he is one of the greats of our time.
Yeah, it's called. I just remember. It's called Moonrise Kingdom, which is
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
my favorite Wes Anderson movie. You talked about bringing back the FestForums in 2023.
Yes.
What's going to be new? Is it going to be a lot of the same? Just getting the gang back together. What are your thoughts on obviously a lot of planning to go, but
So getting the body together. Well, one bit of news a lot of people don't know is I bought out my business partner during COVID. And so the creative vision, which was large part mine, but also my business partners, will steer in a new direction. I think it'll probably be a little more progressive in the sense that we live at a time when I think we have to be vocal about what we feel and what we believe. And we pretty much stayed very neutral, agnostic, apolitical. And I'm convinced that we can't afford to do that anymore. Saying nothing says something.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see some changes there. I'm going to change probably the venue. I have a beautiful venue in Montecito in mind. I've been getting offers for some other venues in other states as well. Bend, Oregon is one that I was looking at. But I think we'll probably stay in Montecito. And I'm working on what the curriculum is and what it's going to look like. And some of the components will be the same. And when we do have a live entertainment component to it, we have networking. I'd like to move away from just that straight panels, trade show feel to something that's a little more organic and integrated. And so I'm looking at ideas that are a little more new and inventive. So I'm all ears. I mean, if people have seen things, and I like to look at what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a really interesting way to look at other shows and see what they're doing. And but my goal is to bring everybody together, to give them the opportunity to talk to each other, to really talk to each other and problem solve, but have a good time at the same time. So
yeah, I agree with that. I think, and we do this at the Wolff Den. We've had some tough conversations which need to be had, and even being able to have it civilly between people who argue, right, who don't have the same opinions, but also being able to have it civilly with people who actually are on the same side, but look at it a different way. And we're talking about the same thing, but we're here and here when we really need to be talking about in the middle. And I think, for a lot of reasons, people don't take a stand. They don't want to alienate part of their audience, right? You see it a lot in, some of it times in Hollywood and the entertainment industry and sports, but some people are vocal, and I want to be that person to say, look, this is what I believe in. Certain things is not as big a deal for your audience. Like, all right, if you don't believe in that, it's okay. We can still talk. We can still be a part of the same thing together. And then there's certain people that if you believe in this thing, it's so far out there, and I would say on the wrong side of history, that I don't care if you want to work with me or be around what I'm doing, because I want a certain type of person. And that's not your ideas. That's just being good people who care about others, who want to make the world a better place.
Well, Matt, I could say it better myself.
So, no, I'm looking forward to being a part of FestForums next year, wherever it is, and seeing how that lines up. I'll get you out of the Wolff Den with the same question we ask everyone. You can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Obviously, you have a lot of good connections, so pick someone that you can't get access to. Who would you pick, and what would you guys be doing?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is the Dalai Lama. There's also another Buddhist priest, a woman, Pema Chodron. I admire their tenacity, their optimism, their teachings. And each time I read or listen, and I was able to actually see the Dalai Lama in person, each time I'm lifted up. And my goal in life is to be a resource to others, to be a help to others, to be a friend, to always be a person you can count on, and always do the right thing. And they lead by example in all that they do. And her humanity, Pema's humanity, is wonderful, her humor. And I just can't say enough good things about her. If you haven't followed her or read about her, I really suggest everybody do so, because I think she will bring a quality of life that we all need to have in this time.
Yeah, there's so many good people out there who don't get the attention and credit that they deserve, and other people, influencers and famous people being elevated, frankly, being rewarded for bad behavior, whatever you want to define that as. So it's good to see these type of people. Dalai Lama was mentioned before, so we'll it's great choice, and just to be around people like that, just to maybe I'm not a big spiritual guy per se, but to have that, to be around someone when you have that, and just to be around their aura, or just to be around good people like that, something's got to. You spend a day with someone like that, there's no way you're going to come out of that not a better person, right? And so that's a great choice. And
Of course, you, Matt. I
yeah,
mean,
I'm going to see you at the next FestForums, if not at an event sooner. Really appreciate your time here today. Check out festforums.com on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email Laurie if you have any questions, ideas about how to get involved with FestForums and all of that. Great episodes next week. We got John O'Leary, who is the best motivational speaker I ever saw live.
wow.
There's a 10-minute film about him, and if you could watch that without shedding some tears, good luck to you. So tune in on Tuesday. We got Pam Gaslow, who wrote a book called Don't Bring Your Vibrator to Rehab. Great story about addiction and getting yourself better. So tune in next week for that, and rewatch this, share this. If you enjoyed the conversation, share it, and let's get the conversation continued. Looking forward to seeing you soon, and good luck in Polestar. Enjoy that event. I know that's going to be probably the biggest thing you've been to since. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for everything.
Bye-bye.
Bye.